Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Thalia Brown. I am with the Authentic Discussion, and I'm excited to introduce a dear friend, Sherida Hinckson, to the podcast. I knew her from Ernst& Young, and recently she started her entrepreneurial journey, Green Quotient. So, Sherida, welcome to the podcast, and tell us a little bit about your company and what you've done.
Valia, thank you so much for having me. As you mentioned, I am the founder and CEO of Green Quotient Solutions. It is an energy strategy and education firm. And I started it because I have a passion, I've always had a passion for energy, the energy sector. And I really wanted to be able to address or participate in the sector from the two lenses that I operate in, which is a very analytical lens, but also a lens and a perspective that really values education and teaching. And so, cornerstone of what I created in this consulting firm is education.
That's awesome. So let's back up a little bit because you didn't start your career thinking you were going to be an entrepreneur. I think everyone has that pivot, right? That pivotal moment that they say, you know what? As much as I enjoyed working in Big Four, as much as enjoyed working potentially in research or financial services, it's time to pivot into an entrepreneur. What did that look like for you?
Yeah, well, interestingly enough, my undergraduate degree is in accounting and information systems. I got that from the College of New Jersey. And although I did finish my degree and graduate with an accounting degree, ultimately going into the accounting field, I always wanted to be within the energy sector or do some type of engineering. So I actually went to a vocational high school, was first introduced to the concept of green energy very early on, but ultimately pivoted because it was so early in, I guess, the general perspective and the general attitude towards sustainability in the US. And so I didn't really know where I would land if I decided to stay the path of green energy back in the early 2010s. And so I decided to go for something more tangible, more familiar, and that was business when I went to college. So graduated, went and worked at Ernst& Young as an auditor. And I also got the opportunity there to stick my feet in deeper into the oil and gas sector that I had always been interested in. And I ended up working in Colombia for a period of time doing oil and gas auditing. But ultimately, after that stint and that opportunity that I got, I wanted to get even deeper into the field, was looking for opportunities at that company, and they actually did not have any available for me. So for me, I took the leap and decided, okay, well, I'm really serious about being in energy, not just energy adjacent in the sense of doing audit work, I should say. So I decided to go to Bloomberg and learn more about clean energy. And so while I was there, I became a specialist in energy storage systems, and researched data and just news about like the installation of battery energy storage systems, which is a type of technology that works with solar panels and wind turbines and all these other clean energy technologies in order to integrate clean energy into the electric grids. And so that's where I got my kind of like two-sided perspective on the energy sector, oil and gas and clean energy. And from there, I decided, there is more that I can do and there's deeper that I can get with this sector that I'm so interested in. And that's how I decided to become an entrepreneur.
That's awesome. And it sounds like you made kind of a clean pivot. Was there anything that you needed to do to kind of get yourself launched, right? I think a lot of people talk about the entrepreneurial journey. And one of the things we talk about is branding. How are you explaining your brand? How are you pivoting the messaging? How are you getting that funding? Can you tell us how you kind of got started?
Yeah. So it was several months before I actually launched business.
Okay.
Um, One of the things is I began ideating about what my ideal job would look like while I was still in corporate. Recognizing the things that I really liked about what I was learning and getting out of my corporate role, and then the things that I wish I was participating in. And so one of the things that I did was I sought out different collectives or that would allow me to drill deeper and be connected to people who really pushed entrepreneurship or pushed self-exploration. And that's when I landed on something called the New Jersey Black Women's Collective.
So tell us a little bit about the New Jersey Black Women's Collective. Is it an incubator? Does it help you not only ideate, but form a business plan, provide structure? What were the tools that they helped you with, or did they equip you with?
Yeah, so that incubator, I guess you could call it, it's a collective effort of different things. So some might describe it as a mini business school, some might describe it as leadership training and a leadership institute, which it is. But while I was there, that was when I got the chance to really think bigger about what I could do, what I could earn, and how I should be presenting myself in the world. And so it was through going through that cohort program that I began thinking of myself as bigger than just an employee and thinking about what my brand and what my passions are and should look like in order for me to um, just go out into the world and do more, earn more, and feel better about myself and be more authentic. And so through that network is when I really started thinking about what my business would look like if I had one and how to be really effective. And I also got a really good network, which is kind of what pushed me into formally starting my business.
No, that's great. And I think one of the things that women don't know about is just the importance of an incubator and an ecosystem surrounding your entrepreneurial journey. One of the things I have always admired about you is that you've done a TED Talk, right? And that you really kind of took your level of interest of public speaking to that next stage and to that next platform. Tell us a little bit about your TED Talk and what did you cover?
Yeah, so my TED Talk was titled The Value of Lifting as You Climb and Social Distance. And so I titled it that because when I was in college, I started an academic chapter or a school chapter of the National Association of Black Accountants. When I was in college, I was the only Black accounting major in my graduating class. From there, I recognized just limited diversity within certain fields. And so I started this organization. And although I did end up changing the demographics of the accounting program for classes that came after me, one of the biggest things that I got out of it was not just leadership of starting an organization, but also just being able to see the impact of lending a hand to someone else and how that can transform their life and their family's life and the opportunities that they or their family members get really did a number on me. And it made me realize that you can learn something from everywhere, from every opportunity that you get, and from every person that you meet. And so that was the genesis and the central point of that conversation that I really wanted to share. And I pointed out social distance as a part of the title of the talk, because it was just at the beginning of the pandemic when it came out, or we were in the pandemic here, I should say. And what I thought was so interesting is the idea of social distance, or how far we are away from insert whomever. And so statistically speaking, we're all just about 6 people away from whoever you want to meet. So for example, you and I are probably 6 people or six handshakes or six insert whomever away from meeting Michelle Obama, for instance.
Yeah.
From meeting Beyonce, from meeting whoever. And so that really stuck with me because it's the power of networking. And it really was a message that I wanted to share during a time that on lockdown and people weren't feeling as connected to one another. And I wanted to remind and inspire people that networking, you can meet whoever you want to meet and accomplish whatever you want to accomplish.
I love that. And I want to drill down on that a little bit because I think that there are some pitfalls to networking. I know myself as a recruiter, a lot of people want to network with me because they want that opportunity to either get into a company or to understand future opportunities, right? Coming in the pipeline. But what are tips that you give somebody who's just looking to network, to meet people, to learn about different industries? What are some of the soft skills to being an effective networker?
Hmm. I think that what I would describe as the most important soft skill in networking is intentionality. I think that when you go to business school, it's pushed that you should be meeting as many people as possible as often as you can. And that is great in terms of numbers. Like if you want to increase your LinkedIn connection count or an Instagram following or some other thing. But I don't think that it lends itself well to long-term relationships that will in turn benefit you in the way that you might think. So I think it's important that when you do network with people, you're choosing people who you specifically want to be in community or in network with, not just someone who's there just because. Because as I mentioned before, if you're just doing it for numbers, in the long run, when you do need that person or you would like to be affiliated with whatever they're affiliated with, they're probably not going to want to help you because they're like, you're just one of a million versus, hey, Sharita came and talked to me about this thing that she was really, really passionate about or that really interested her. And that's how we connected. You're more memorable in that way versus just one of a million.
Yeah, and I think the connection really speaks volumes because people don't remember a one-off LinkedIn connection. A lot of
Exactly.
it is what are you coming away from that conversation with, and where is that connection established? How have you
Right.
established a connection, and is that a connection that people want to foster and grow? So
Correct.
I
Yeah.
love that. Let's pivot into the innovation economy. That is a term that has been used pretty widely. I've seen that with NASDAQ's description of this current climate. How are we, or how are entrepreneurs challenged in this space, right? I think we've seen a growth with um, the work shifts, so many layoffs, so many people are now forced to pivot and potentially look into entrepreneurship. Do you have any thoughts on the innovation economy and what and how people are pivoting? Just at
Yeah.
a 10,000 foot view.
Yeah. I think that a lot of people, because of just how accessible news is, whether on social media or through traditional news sources, the younger generation, especially, is becoming very discouraged at their potential job outlook. And it's forcing people to become more innovative in terms of designing the lifestyle or the career that they want for themselves. And I think that just the way the economy looks right now and just how traditional ways of earning income have shifted over, even if you call it the last 5 years since the pandemic, um, has really forced people to become innovative and to really look within themselves to determine how they can earn and how they can participate in the greater economy.
That's great. One of the things that has been on my radar, I'm sure it maybe even on your radar, is the news story of the 300,000 Black women that have left the workforce, right? I think we would only miss that opportunity to address it without coming into, you know, a full actualization that a lot of women were eliminated from their jobs because of the DEI cuts,
Hmm.
because of whether you're leading a DEI function or whether you're tangential and ERG leader, that impacted you and that impacted your role. And I think a lot of women now are forced to pivot. And I
Yeah.
think a lot of people don't want to consider entrepreneurship as that next step. Do you have any advice as someone that pivoted into entrepreneurship and has really elevated herself and her brand from coming out of a corporate environment?
Hmm. I think that it was so unfortunate to have read that statistic. Um, but I don't know that I would say that even though I'm an entrepreneur, that everyone wants to become an entrepreneur. Some people do just like the standard 9 to 5 or just clocking in and clocking out and contributing to someone else's vision. But I do think in light of all of the tragedy of all these Black women and so many other people losing their jobs in this time period, it has given space for people to think about what they actually want to be doing instead of just, I guess, mindlessly in some ways just contributing to someone else's effort. So, I guess if I had to give commentary or advice to someone who was eliminated from their position, it would be to take the time. Of course, you need to be looking forward potentially to pay for bills and contribute in other areas of your life, but use that time to really dig deep and understand what you want for yourself. And if it's within your capability to build that. Um, so yeah, don't completely overlook the opportunity of becoming an entrepreneur, but definitely use the time to understand yourself more deeply and to know if the track that you were on before is something you truly wanted.
Yeah, I think that's really helpful because I think a lot of people kind of look at it as like, all right, well, I'm going to become a business owner, and they pivot out of desperation
Yeah.
instead of truly wanting to do an entrepreneur role or being a founder. I've been very fortunate to follow my passion and to
Yeah.
really dig into something I love to do. That's not everyone's story. And I think you have to follow your passions, you have to follow your dreams, but you also have to realistically say, is this something that I can afford to do? And I think you
Hmm.
hit the nail on the nose, right? Affordability, practicality, and realism. And I think
Yeah.
a lot of people talk about this innovation economy in a vacuum, saying, okay, well, this is a new wave, this is a new trend. But the reality is it sustainable, right?
Right.
Will people be able to keep going as we're seeing different cuts in education, as we're seeing different cuts in small business administration? Will we have enough tools to keep us going and avenues to keep building? Um, so I'm glad that you addressed that. And, from again, pivoting onto skills needed to pivot yourself back into leadership, you've done an excellent job, honestly. You've had an incredible background the last few years that I've gotten to know you, Sherida. And I would love for you to tell the audience, what are some of the 5 soft skills that you think has helped you build your brand and keep you going?
Mhm. I would say the first soft skill would have to be authenticity. And I think that that is something that I leaned into at first, and then going into corporate felt that I needed to change or modify. But since becoming my own brand and running my own business, I've realized that you will only get so far trying to remake what already exists or what is someone else's. And so, in understanding that my lens and everything that I've experienced in my personal life and my professional life is what is going to be the essence of the work that I'm doing and what encourages people to buy into the work that my company does, um, I realize that's priceless. That's not replicable elsewhere. And so I've really leaned into, you know, the fact that I value two things that might not always go together, and that's energy analysis and education. And it might be unconventional, but it's me, and it is what encourages me to continue pushing into this, challenging at times entrepreneur life. The second thing I would definitely say is boldness. That is something that I've had to push through over the last year change of me starting my own business. It's so easy when you work at a big name company to just be behind the scenes and let the company's name do the talking for you and that be the introduction into different spaces. But when you are an entrepreneur, you have to put yourself out there or else no one is checking for you. They'll find someone else to do the work that you want to do, and your business is more or less going to just not thrive. And so you have to be the mouthpiece for your business and why it should exist and why it should be servicing people and things that you wanted to service. I would definitely say consistency is another characteristic that I think is important because unlike when you work at a company and you can just clock in and clock out, you get out of it what you put into it in an entrepreneurial situation. And so when you're not consistently putting yourself out there, looking for new clients, looking for ways to expand your service offerings and your perspective on the industry or whatever you're serving to others, you will not see the financial success that is possible for an entrepreneur. And so I find myself constantly looking for new cohorts to join and new programs that will allow me to expand my mind and my ability to consistently put myself out there and find new work and new opportunities. Um, for the fourth point, I would say network, or I guess you can also call that reinforcement. So, being that Green Quotient Solutions is still a small startup, I can only get myself through so many doors on my own. And I know in some situations people call it a sponsor. They need a sponsor to get you and your business into spaces that you haven't been in. And I think that that is completely true. So the first time that I ever got a four-figure opportunity through my business was because I networked with someone that I met when I was in college. And he brought me in to provide an academic workshop. And I'm so grateful for that because prior to that, I was taking on just smaller opportunities that were paying a couple $100s here, a couple $100s there, and never really amounting to what that one opportunity did for me. And so I think
Yeah.
working correctly and getting people to back your vision and back your ability is like priceless as well.
No, I would agree. And I think one of the biggest challenges, and I don't want to speak for you because I know we're both African American, but credibility has always been a huge issue in our community, right? A
Mhm.
lot of people always want to tell you to grow into your role.
Yeah.
How many years do you need to grow into your role before you're starting to be taken seriously? How do
Yeah.
you build that authority? And is there any advice that you can give around building authority?
hmm I think that to your point, authority has to be built. I think the advantage that people have in this generation is the fact that it's as easy, and I use that very lightly, as easy as just turning on a microphone and making a YouTube page, making a TikTok page, and building up an audience that trusts your perspective. But I also think to be a responsible leader and a responsible entrepreneur and voice in a space, that it's important that you are constantly seeking out opportunities to academically reinforce and prove your
Yeah,
authority. And so for me, I'm actually in grad school at present. I'm a candidate for a master's of science in oil and gas and renewable energy. And although, yes, I could go online and research and read all the stuff that I'm learning in school in the same way, instead of just paying for a master's or going through a master's program, it was important to me that I had the textbook knowledge behind the things that I want to talk to people about. And so everyone does not have to run out and go and get a master's, but I do think it's important that people go to seminars. I go to seminars all the time from universities that are near me. They often offer a free program here, a free program there, and I learn about renewable energy and I'm able to network with people in that way. And I think that consistently showing up in these spaces with the research that I've done on my own, that I've done at school, or with knowledge that I've gained from going to a free seminar through a university, even, is what is giving me the authority that I seek, especially being only just a year and change into being an entrepreneur in this space.
that's great. One of the things that I think women shy away from, at least I was very fortunate that my family leaned into STEM. My dad was a mechanical engineer and also and worked in pharmaceuticals. So I had a really good overview of STEM from my parents. But
Yeah.
I don't think that that's everyone, right? And I think a lot of women shy away from sciences and math and engineering. What made you lean into that?
hmm I think for me, it was like, I don't want to say a natural inclination, but I've always been very um like technical minded. And so I had an affinity towards math and science growing up. But as I mentioned before, when I was in high school, I went to a vocational school and they had a program that was called Green Energy Academy at the time. And it was very innovative for the time period. And for my parents, they're Guyanese, they really didn't know not what green energy science was, but as immigrants, it was hard for them to encourage me to go into a field that didn't seem as concrete as something like an engineering or as an accounting. And so, despite me having an inclination towards green energy years and years before I ever decided to start a company, um, I ultimately decided to go into the accounting field and into college and find adjacent ways into tapping into that energy STEM or sustainability science sector. And so I think that what is important for women to know and young people of color, people who are not necessarily represented well in these STEM fields, is to know that there are ways that you can be involved without being completely a scientist or something. I recently this year went to a conference through the organization AABE, AABE, the American Association of Blacks in Energy. And my thinking was, okay, I'm a founder of an energy related consultancy. I'm going to see a bunch of engineers here and whatnot. And it was so interesting to find that I found um, people who are the accountants in the energy firm or the manager of the energy engineers and stuff like that. So there are ways for you to be in the STEM field without actually being the scientist or the engineer, because there are needs for support staff everywhere in every industry. And so yeah, I would definitely share that with others, that don't limit yourself to something non-STEM just because you don't think you fit in. Like you can still do the HR work, but just at an energy company, for example.
Yeah, I think that that's an excellent call out because I think a lot of people shy away from something because they don't want to be the purple squirrel or the elephant in the room, right?
Yeah.
And I hate to use those two adjectives, but I think it really speaks to the skittish nature of sometimes women in these industries, right? And
Yeah.
moving into STEM has always kind of been something that people slowly, dip their toe into rather than going full force because they're
Yeah.
afraid of failure. Did you ever have that fear of failure moment, or and if you did, how did you overcome it? And when you think about fear of failure, I'm really talking about the imposter syndrome moment, right? Like where it's like, I don't think I belong here. What am I doing in these spaces? What do I know? And how do I in- overcome my own self doubt to power through it and build those relationships
Mhm.
and build that authority?
Yeah, I think that you overcome your fear of failure by proving to yourself that you can do it. And it sounds backwards because it's like, well, if I'm scared, why would I do it? But I think that data is something that is critical for you to gather in order to overshadow a fear that you have. So if you're afraid of speaking in public, you have to speak in public enough times successfully in order to show yourself, actually, I don't need to be afraid. Nothing's going to happen to me. I'm just going to speak. And I think that that is something that I had to do in the first couple of months and year of me starting my own company, which was put myself out there and prove to myself that I can do the things that I want to do. And I would say that in many ways, the universe, God reinforced my belief in self because every time I put myself out there, even if it was in a small way, I was responded with an opportunity or paid opportunity, someone who was interested in me because I put myself out there. So I think that collecting the data and the proof that you can do these things is what is needed in order to get farther ahead. I think it's like almost like a circle where they say like as it relates to getting a job. Like you need to have experience to get a job, but you need to have a job to get an experience. And I feel that same way with starting my own company. In order for me to believe and know that I can do these things, I have to do it. So I think the action comes before the confidence, I would say.
No, I think that that's accurate, right? I think that we always have self doubt, but it's just live in that moment, push yourself through it, and not necessarily wait for the better outcome, but believe that the
Hmm.
better outcome will happen, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's the belief that we will succeed that sometimes scares people from actually giving it a shot.
Yeah.
As we close out today's call, any final thoughts? Any thoughts that you'd like to leave with the audience about your journey and what you think help another woman as
Hmm.
she's considering potentially starting her own business?
Hmm. I would definitely say that you know what you're good at. And it's important that you're honest about what you're good at and not try to recreate the wheel or try to recreate what someone else has, because that is only going to last for so long. I think that when I first started out with Green Quotient Solutions, I felt like I needed to pull inspiration from here, 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 and in my last role, this is what worked, and this is what was the moneymaker. And slowly but surely, I realized that is not me, and that is not the essence of the work and the service that I want to provide to others. And I just have to lean into what I'm interested in and what I know I could provide to others in a way that is valuable and will be successful. One of my favorite quotes is, "Why be a cheap copy when you can be a priceless original?" And I feel like that is so true for the work that I'm doing. So lean into what you know you're going to be good at and what other people will want to pay you for, because recreating what already exists is that's not your blessing, and that's not for you to do. That was someone else's thing. So hammer in on what you're good at and you will see the benefits and the rewards of that.
No, I think that's excellent advice. I thank you so much, Sherida, for coming today. It was a pleasure to have you on the podcast. Um,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Thalia.
You're
I'm so
welcome.
happy that you had me here. I really appreciate it.
No, of course, of course.